Kyle, I would love if you could just introduce yourself and a bit about what you do at AI Impact Hub and also the non-for-profit AI website as well.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. It's always great to connect with people that are interested in, exploring how this technology can help nonprofits. So, yeah, long story short, I born in South Africa, moved to London, landed up in Australia, and started volunteering at a nonprofit animal sanctuary for rescued farmed animals. And I was there for 13 and a bit years, and it was just really interesting seeing how important good systems and technology was to help empower people to do their jobs well and to actually not waste time on inefficient workflows and processes, actually empower people to do the work that they needed to do, which was mainly being out there caring for these hundreds of rescued animals. And we kind of went through a really interesting journey of using Salesforce and creating an animal database within that. And then
Yeah.
finding as more staff started using it, just the challenges with the UI and the user experience. And then creating our own animal database, leveraging Salesforce, but then also Airtable, Softer, Slack. And the glue that held it all together was make.com, this incredible automation software tool. And from that experience, it was like, wow, it was like this enlightening experience of how much we could actually build ourselves, how much we could customize to what we wanted to build. And again, just how helpful these systems and tools were to actually enable people to do good work. After I left there, it was just as AI was exploding, and I thought, this is it. Like, this is the technology that nonprofits have been waiting for. And from there embarked on my AI journey that we can more than happy to explore further as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point as well, the fact that bringing technology into the nonprofit space can massively increase the impact. Because I think a few years ago, the view within the nonprofit space is that it's just about putting in more compassion. So it's just like spend more time working behind like a charity shop desk. But the actual things that can increase the impact are also using data more, employing people who have the right skills, maybe even bringing in a founder to the company who's got quite a high salary because they're able to push things forward. And I think there was a bit of a shift, possibly with the effective altruism movement, that helped people think about how to have an effective impact. And it's not just about pouring compassion and not having any strategy. And yeah, I feel like technology is a big part of that, and now especially AI as well.
Uh, 100%. I think, unfortunately, the sector is plagued by this problem of um, that passion almost being the currency of impact, isn't it? And there's only so much energy and passion anyone can commit. And I think that's why the sector sees such high rates of burnout and turnover, and people leaving the sector altogether and going back to the for-profit sector. And I can understand why. I mean, personally, I've been burnt out many a time, and it's only through understanding why and seeing that, yeah, there wasn't sufficient scaffolding, there wasn't sufficient systems and procedures to protect people, that I did fall into that trap as well. And this is not to say that this doesn't happen in the for-profit community as well. Like,
Mhm.
100%, there is turnover, there is burnout. I just think in the non-profit space, we are unfortunately almost, it's almost seen sometimes as the norm, and even worse so, sometimes seen as a badge of honor, like that you have pushed yourself
Yeah.
that
To
far.
be self-sacrificial,
It-
which then ends up you burning out, making less efficient choices, not managing your energy and time well, and then ultimately not delivering the impact that you really are striving to achieve. Yeah,
exactly.
I think it would be worth as well then going into the last couple of years with the AI Impact Hub and non-for-profit AI and just how things have changed, and the impact that you've started to have now in the nonprofit space.
Yeah, again, it's been a very interesting journey. Personally, when I first used ChatGPT, I had this aha moment. I was blown away. It was ChatGPT 3.5, and
Yeah,
already then I was amazed by just what it could do, and I think I could just see that it was only getting better from that. We hear this quote all the time. This is the worst that this technology will ever be, and it's
right.
can be kind of scary reflecting on that. I was just reading an article today of Anthropic launched something like 90 features and updates over the last 30 days. No, sorry, it was 90, maybe 90 features over the last 90 days. Sorry, anything. It was absurd. It's new models, it's
Yeah,
advancements to Claude Code, Co-work, the context window, all of these things. I'm reading through this, and I actually was messaging some of my friends about it. I said, this year is going to be wild if it just continues the way that this is started.
yeah,
And, going back to that first experience of just seeing how AI could do a task. It was drafting, just for me at that time, a fundraising email in the tone of our founder. But it was amazing. Like I didn't give it any clear instructions. I didn't know much about prompting at that stage, and it still did a really decent job. And the more I looked into this, the more I saw, the different advancements that were coming through image and video. And what really excited me was, how that could be put into automations, because I'd done a lot of automations at that stage. And what I always found was the missing piece was the intelligence part of it. You could create a workflow that did step by step by step, took data from different applications, but it was very challenging to actually manipulate that unless you used, regex or some type of coding thing. You couldn't really do much with it. But AI became this intelligence layer that you could embed within this automation that, again, just, it was just opportunities. Everything I saw was just opportunities for impact and efficiency. So I
yeah,
started NFPs.ai, and the idea was a consulting organization to just consult organizations around how they could implement AI. And I think at that time, especially, it was very premature. I was very excited after using the technology, and I thought nonprofits are going to be banging down my door, wanting to know, how do you leverage this properly. But again, as we know, they sadly are stuck in the cycle of being busy and often not being able to explore and integrate other solutions.
yeah. And
And
can I just say
yeah,
as well, like one thing we notice is that the people who need systems the most have the least time to be able to create those systems, so they can get stuck in this destructive loop.
yeah.
And yeah, that's one thing we've noticed as well.
Yeah, I think there's, quickly just on that, I think there's two types of feedback loops, and one is exactly that. When I call it the too busy, being busy, too busy to be busy, or something. What was it? It was busy, too busy being busy. And the idea is that exactly that, like, you just don't even have the capacity or the space to, Google, like, which system should I be looking at, like, what am I missing. I don't know where to start. And that itself is a feedback loop. And then with AI, you have this opposite one where, again, yes, there is investment and there is time that you need to put in the beginning, but the more you use it, the more comfortable you get, the more you are starting to unlock these capabilities, the more efficiency gains that you get. And I think that in itself is a really interesting topic that maybe we can chat about later, because I don't think leadership does enough to actually incentivize and prioritize. Okay, well, if you do get these efficiency gains, then what do you do with this time? Because often it's now just filled with more work, which isn't always the best incentive for people that are already burning out.
Yeah, people definitely aren't incentivized to build robust systems up front that then save time in the future. Instead, people are usually incentivized to get work out with quick deadlines. And what they end up doing is like scrappy solutions that aren't as automated, that then accrue technical debt upon and upon and upon. And then just maintaining these systems becomes the entire week, or just maintaining the to do. And really, then the people are bogged down in these like $10 an hour tasks that could be that could be, better structured or replaced by a better system or an automation.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I think technical debt is just such a perfect word to describe that. Yeah.
In terms of the nonprofits who you've worked with, what were some of the kind of like common use cases that you've been able to help them with in AI? And have you been able to sort of give them those light bulb moments, like what you described with the email in ChatGPT, where they were like, "Oh, like now I kind of get this, like that we should be doing this."
Yeah, yes and no. I think, unfortunately, still, I think the sector is very far behind. I find that I'm still teaching many of the fundamental techniques that I've been teaching for the last few years, still to this day, to new organizations that are exploring this. So that's one of the frustrations that I've had is kind of, what do I start teaching? What do I start implementing? Because one of the challenges has actually been, providing a specific solution for an organization, often an automation that integrates AI within it, that solves that problem, but doesn't necessarily kickstart their AI adoption journey. It's like, oh wow,
Mm,
you've really helped us with it. One example is a great this organization that got mentioned a lot in the media. Every time they were mentioned, they manually were getting the URL of the article, putting it into a spreadsheet, copy and pasting the date, the article name, the journalist's name. It was literally was hundreds of hours a year, and we created an automation that used a Google News alert, checked every time this organization was mentioned. AI would actually analyze the article, extract those key elements, pop them into a database. It's like
yeah,
pretty simple when you break it down to that, but obviously, like, they didn't know that this was even possible, and even just finding that use case was really interesting because it kind of just came about from a throwaway comment when we were doing a bit of discovery about things we could provide solutions, and I was like, no, 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 wait, tell me more about that. And so I think this is one of the challenges. Like, organizations don't know what's possible, so then they don't even know that there's a solution. They just do the thing they've always done in the same way, thinking that that is how it has to be done. But I think the automations is a really interesting one because there's so much progression that can happen in that space. And it's interesting because still to this day, even though we can do automations with Claude and Cowork and Claude Code, I still think there's so much value in learning the fundamentals through a tool like make.com. I
mm,
love Make because they have a very generous nonprofit plan. You get a whole year for free, the very
wow,
like 60,000 automations per month. So it's very generous, very kind of them. And so really a great way to get started. It's very visual. You've got UI, you can drag and drop these nodes. But what I think they get most from that is the understanding of how to break a task down into steps and see that
yeah,
progression and seeing, okay, why is it not working the way that we expect it to? I think this is such a fascinating thing with us as humans. We often oversimplify what is involved in doing a task. I'm working on a tool with an organization at the moment to help draft replies to social media comments. And if I were to say to someone, you know, draft a reply to the social media comment that's on this post, like, you would think, okay, well, like, what's the instructions? Maybe, like, look at the original post, see the comment, remember a bit about the organization and who they are and how they reply, and then draft a reply that's engaging. We are now at the point where the prompt is 13 pages long of
yeah,
instructions to reply to one little comment, because there's so much involved in it. You've got the context of the organization, the style guide, words to use, words not to use. What does engaging mean? Like, what is the format of how we reply? What is the goal of replying to this comment in this way? What is the actual content that we are replying to? What was the original post? Like, all of that comes together in a way that I think we just oversimplify and don't take the time to work through and figure that out in steps. And I think that is such a great lesson through building these automations, that you see step by step. You're like, if something's not working, you got to figure out why. You got to figure out like what is that
Yeah.
missing piece, and it can actually be that unlock to help you figure these things out step by step. And I
Yeah.
think that is then going to be a really valuable skill to apply to Claude Code or co-work, because I think it's going to be really interesting now seeing people just kind of like jumping into that without the sufficient knowledge of, clearly defining those different steps and stages.
Yeah.
Potentially, AI is just going to be intelligent enough to overcome this. I think this is just going to be something we're going to have to see.
I think
But
that
I
I
think
think
there's
that that I think that that absolutely is the first stage, though, is actually clearly defining your processes and your SOPs and writing down the instructions of how you currently do something as the baseline to how to automate it and then how to improve it. But at the start, so many people, the knowledge of what's happening sits within their heads and pen and paper, somebody in their team who left, and getting it written down. Look, all of these tools and agents, they're only as good as the instructions that you put inside them. So creating the clear processes is definitely a first step. Would you say as well, though, that possibly through the consulting, do you ever find that you can build trust quickly by giving them a couple of quick wins, i.e., like just introducing them to a tool, or maybe just telling them, hey, try adding an AI meeting note taker to all of your calls from now on?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the meeting note takers is a no-brainer. Like whether you use them externally, you got to, define in your AI policy and get permission and stuff. But internally for meetings, you can get, models now that are running locally. It removes all of the security concerns, and you start developing a data collection that you can leverage in the future, and you can start working with that to extract action items, summaries, and things like that. 100%. My favorite one, it's so simple, but I just see it again and again highlight to people like what's possible is in ChatGPT or in Claude, create a project. In that project, you drop in your organizational strategic plan, your previous impact reports, your communication guidelines, anything that you would onboard a new staff member or an intern with, do that to the AI. And you do that in this project. And by giving it these files, these contexts, it takes your outputs from 0 to 80%. And I love this example. I bring up ChatGPT, I open up a temporary chat so it has no memory, and I just say draft a fundraising email. And what you get is a template, if you really think about it. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
there of any substance to a specific organization. But if you do that exact same prompt, which is a really bad prompt, we're not giving any information, but you do the exact same prompt, please draft me a fundraising email in a project that has the information about the organization, the strategic plan, even if you can, just some copies of previous emails. All of a sudden, you're getting something that's 80% there without doing any work. And I think, as you say, like the context is the so important to
Context.
this AI, and we're just missing that fundamental step. It doesn't take long; it takes 5 minutes, but I think it also highlights, unfortunately, where so many organizations don't have this context available, which is a problem because if it's not available for AI, it's not available for people, is it? And that in turn creates internal problems for organizations because, like, this is important information to run an efficient and effective organization. And so, without that context and without those clear like processes and procedures, it's very hard to get good output from AI because we're just winging it a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think this is important as well because giving somebody a win like that, it starts to educate them with kind of the philosophy of why it's so important, which is what probably leads to AI transformations in businesses. Because I do still see today so many people saying that they simply don't see the value of AI, or they think that AI is a net negative that they don't want to be a part of. And when there are like clear examples, like call note taking, where it's like, look, you really cannot argue that this is not a pro for the business. Like now you've got the entire context of that person's call log, everything that you've discussed with them before. You can quickly summarize that before your next chat. You can take all the action items from it, delegate to your team. There's You could use those for your own marketing and content to see what are all of the problems that are coming up in all of your client calls, etc. And then can I turn these into content pieces? There are so many things, and lots of these tools are free. But what do you think are the main barriers to AI adoption in the nonprofit space?
Actually, I funnily did a post about this on LinkedIn just a couple of days ago, and I'll pull it up because then I've got exactly what I said. But I
Oh,
think
awesome.
unfortunately there's a few. I think yeah, the first one is no. A lot of organizations don't even have an AI policy. So the statistics that come out are very like very replicable around the world. We're seeing somewhere between 15 and 20% of nonprofits having an AI policy. So that means like 80%
Wow.
don't. And I think from a staff member's perspective, this already shows that leadership isn't taking this as a serious priority, prioritizing this. The policy, I think, is such a fundamental step in ensuring that people are using AI in a way that aligns with you and how your organization has defined it. There's so many. This is the interesting thing about AI. We've got so many wide varieties of using it. We've got the text-based one, as we said, we've got the meeting note taker, but we've also got things like generating images. Now, this can get a lot of
Mm.
organizations in a lot of trouble if they are creating fake images to showcase something of work that they potentially didn't even do. And so, if you don't even have a policy that clearly defines, AI images cannot be used for social media or any emails, but you can use them internally for like happy birthday certificates or event posters or whatever. That in itself just clearly defines to people, okay, what can we use these tools for and when can we not? And that gives organizations the ability to have accountability. Otherwise, everyone could just be doing anything. So I think that's one of the first most fundamental things, which I think is so important. The second is not having access to paid versions of these tools. I
Mm.
presented at a conference last month, and there was about 150 to 200 people in the room. Said, how many people are using AI? And pretty much everyone's hand went up. And I was like, that's fantastic. I was like, who here uses a paid tool? And honestly, about 85% of the hands went down, and someone shouted out from the crowd. They said, paid from the organization or paid personally. And like it hit me. I was like, oh gosh, yeah,
Wow.
this is so bad because people are paying for this from their own money, not even getting this support from these organizations. And we're seeing that it is becoming so affordable now. We're at the
Yeah.
stage now that it was $20 US per month when it first started. ChatGPT still has their discount, which sits at around the same pace, but Anthropic's got a plan that starts at $8 US per month. Google has a plan where you can firstly leverage a lot of their AI tools for free on the free nonprofit plan, or you can pay $3.50 per user per month
Wow.
and get access to all of the Gemini features, Notebook LM, Gemini within all of the Google Work Suite apps.
Yeah.
Like,
Imagining comparing that to the employee payroll, it might be 1%, and it could enable all those employees to be 40%, 50%, two times as efficient.
yeah.
So what would you say in terms of your delivery structure for helping organizations what has worked? So I'm talking about, I know that you filmed some courses with the OpenAI Nonprofit Academy. I'm guessing that you do some coaching. I know that you do like workshops, or what things seem to have the most impact? And also from your own personal time perspective as a business owner, like how do you like to spend your time to help the nonprofits?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And it's a really hard one to answer because it's something that I change my mind on often. Because when I initially started NFPs.ai, it was a consulting and education, like a consulting and implementation rather organization,
Hmm.
building out projects for or solutions for organizations and consulting with specific problems. And as I said, what I found was that like it just didn't seem to be the kickstart into their AI adoption journey that I hoped. And so I then kind of reframed everything towards AI Impact Hub, which is the educational aspect. So it was education, courses, membership, weekly like office hours and things like that. And I found that that resonates with some people, but again, not with everyone. And again, this can be hard again because we have different roles, we've got different organizations, people are using it in different ways. And a lot of the effort then still falls back on them, where they can learn the foundations and some specific use cases, but then they've got to go and figure out how they can apply it back to their work. And then I also find that just so many of these organizations still do not have anyone internal that does have the technical competency to build out an automation or a solution. So I do jump back and forward quite a bit, between education, between consulting, coaching, and implementation. And I do enjoy the mix, to be honest, because I think education, I love the education because you get that one-to-many. You're able to, like, I
Yeah,
always
it's very
like, how
scalable.
can like amplify the impact that I have? And it's like, well, my goal with AI Impact Hub was how could I make every organization have someone that had like the knowledge that I'd acquired by that time, so that they can be the ones building the automations, they can be the ones coaching. Obviously, that's a lot harder than simply the words, but I think, yeah, we really need like this multifaceted approach. I think we need the coaching, we need the education, we need the discounted tools, we need leadership to take this seriously. We need leadership to go through its own type of training. I've done this with organizations where we've met weekly, and just with their leadership team, we're working out the strategy, we're working out their tool stack, we're working out how are they going to train their staff, how are they going to onboard people, how are they going to increase the conversations around AI, how are they going to develop a culture around sharing. Like that needs to come from the top down, and then from the bottom up, you need to have these people that are learning the fundamentals, the basics, so that they are fluent and competent in AI. And then they need time to be able to experiment and explore and figure out how they can apply it to their work and then share it. So I think we really need this to come from a multitude of directions. I even think boards should
Yeah,
be involved, where boards should be directing the strategic direction of an organization. And they should be now saying, like, AI needs to be a big part of this discussion. I think conferences need to adopt it more as a bigger talking point. I think funders need to adopt it more. I think donors need to start encouraging the organizations that they support and say, like, are you using it? How are you using it? And there's
yeah,
always going to be some organizations that don't, and that's fine. And, for whatever reasons, if that donor is going to support them with that in mind, like that's all good. But I
yeah,
think, we need conversation, we need dialogue. This needs to be a priority for these organizations.
yeah. It's funny though, because probably in the for-profit space, venture capitalists are pouring billions into AI, and it would be their first question is, how are you using AI to improve your operations, bring this product to market, do the marketing? How are you going to use it to speed up the entire growth of this business? And AI works just the same for non-profits and for-profits. They're still run by people who are running systems and campaigns. Do you have any other kind of favorite tools within the space that we haven't already mentioned?
Yeah, the video I think has been the slowest technology to emerge. It's definitely still requires a lot more framing, especially if you need something like consistency or voice and movement matching and things like that. So I haven't seen many organizations use it, unfortunately, which I think is a huge loss. Like, we spoke about that
Yeah.
technical debt. I think another thing we see a lot now is just opportunity loss, because it's not only about what is, increasing efficiency and effectiveness of organizations, but also what is now possible. Some of the
Mm,
things that I've been playing around lately is with Claude Code and just seeing how it can build out immersive web experiences for potential donors or visitors to a website. And the two that I've been exploring recently was taking part of an impact report. So that would generally come from a nonprofit organization as a PDF that's maybe, put on their website or emailed to their supporters, and actually turn that into an engaging experience. I will never forget the first time that I used Apple's website, and you scroll down and the iPhone pulls apart into these different
Experience.
components, and you get pulled into the camera and zoom through. It's an experience. And that is, like, back in the day, that was very hard, very expensive to make. I built a similar thing in about 30 minutes, replicating like a part of the work that WWF does in replanting all of these trees for koalas. And so we had, this koala that was just sitting in a barren field. And as you keep scrolling, it zooms out. The koala looks up, all these trees start growing, a forest grows, and then text overlays. And look, it wasn't like, the most amazing thing ever, but I was like, this is this is possible. Like, this is now
Yeah.
possible. And I just think that not enough of that is happening, where we're seeing, like, how can you take a donation form and turn it into experience? How can you take your impact report and turn it into an experience? Like,
Mhm.
you want, like, so much around nonprofits, whether it be advocacy work, whether it be fundraising work, it's about getting people to feel. You want them to feel an emotion. And you can do that through text. We've been doing that for a long time. You can do that through imagery. You can do that through video. But now I feel like we're getting to this new stage of, immersive kind of like digital experiences that is just completely untapped. And I think that's actually kind of easier at the moment than the video, because
Yeah.
Claude and OpenAI's Codex are just getting so good at coding that if you can, give it a template, some skills, and a framework to work through, you can actually get, something really, really decent. The video I find a lot harder, because especially if you want some type of consistency, you're often working first from images and then turning those images into videos, and trying to do some type of first frame, last frame motion scripts within it. That being said, I still think that this is completely untapped, because especially on things like social media, I saw something yesterday on TikTok, that there's this new account has been around for 20 days or something, and they do like a Love Island, but it's with fruit and vegetables or something. It's Fruit Island or something. They got 3 million followers, 3 million
Yeah.
followers in a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
I, I guess that's how marketing works though, as well, is that it has uneven payoffs sometimes. And in the same way that Apple's website is converting into product sales, these non-profit websites can convert into way higher donations. So if you did have some kind of marketing techniques that are gonna be supported through AI that can drive more eyeballs to your website and to your organization, it could just have exponential returns on how much impact you have as an organization.
yeah.
And like it is just so exciting to imagine where things could go in the nonprofit space if people were more open to using the technology more.
Yeah. And I think, circling back to a question you had before about, what are the other AI tools that I think could be really beneficial in the space. One of my absolute favorite is just dictation tools. If
Mm.
you ever used the computer
Whisper.
inbuilt dictation a few years ago, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh gosh, I hope it's not that, because everything comes out with gibberish, and it's an absolute mess. These AI dictation tools now are phenomenal. And I'm just finding that I'm not typing as much. You got to draft a reply to an email, boom, pull up dictation, speak my reply. It drops it in, it formats it, removes the ums and ahs. It's it, it, it's like
It's
amazing.
incredible. I
And how
think
much time is saved just from that task of not needing to type out again and again and again.
Yeah, and obviously with Claude and ChatGPT, you can just turn on the voice note feature, even if you don't have a dictation tool to go and talk into them. But I think the guy who built OpenClaw or something like Claude he built the entire thing vibe coding with his voice. So he used a dictation tool to vibe code his voice, and he built a product which OpenAI acquired for $1 billion as one person. And
Oh,
if you can't see how incredible that is, then yeah, it's just it's wild what some people are doing. And obviously not everyone can do that, but we can dictate our voices to quickly get our thoughts out of our head onto a tool that can draft us an email or reply to somebody a bit more intelligently or summarize a report.
even this conversation, there's a reason we're doing it verbally as opposed to, back and forth over text. The amount, we spoke about volume. The amount of volume of information that we've been able to pack into this verbal session far outweighs what we could ever put in a text-based one. And I think that is
100%.
also because of just that um, ability to speak so much more naturally. I know some people prefer typing, and if you do, use it for the things that you love. But I just find, again, circling back to what we spoke about with AI in the beginning, context. AI needs context to do good work. And the best way to give it a lot of context is to speak, because not only with the same amount of time are you going to give it more volume, but you often just break down those barriers. Like when we speak, I find this personally so much. I just go in like so many different directions, especially if you get the AI to ask you questions in return. You know, my favorite thing is just AI interview me all the time, interview me. And just speaking, the golden quality that you get from that far outweighs anything that I've ever found to be able to type out into my computer.
That's such a good point. And if it's just like the raw numbers, I think it's something like 140 words per minute that we speak at and like 50 words per minute that we type at. Obviously, that varies, but if you're just thinking about that, you can get through things so much quicker. Like we have a process for SOP creation where we say, literally just go for a walk outside and create a voice note, just word dump everything in. And then after you've got that, maybe it's an 8-minute voice note, transcribe it, ask AI to tidy it, and there you've got it, your base SOP, and you got that from going for a walk and speaking to your phone. And there are other apps. I think there's one called like VoicePal, which
Yeah.
like it asks you questions back when you speak into it. So you can have a bit of like a combative conversation with the AI, which can get the absolute best out of you. But that you could use that for so many things. You could think about how you structure your fundraising offer or your messaging or so many things that you could improve your strategy by using AI to help you really think at a higher level.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
even interestingly on that, the other day I was using Claude's Chrome plugin, and it's got a feature where you can teach it how to do a task, and it will record your screen and see where you click, take screenshots, take notes all along the way, and then at the end it will turn it into
so
a
cool.
repeatable process. But what's super interesting about it is it asks you to enable your microphone and speak to it about what you are doing and how you are doing it. And so I think they are seeing, like, clicking and pointing is one thing. Speaking on top of that just adds so much more value that they can actually really enrich the process, procedure, documentation. And yeah, voice is just such a
Yeah,
great way
and
to
that's
get
just
that.
a Claude Chrome plugin. I actually
Yeah.
haven't heard of that before. It sounds a little bit like when when Google AI Studio like records your screen
Ah,
sometimes, and
yes.
you can ask it to help you. But that sounds like a really good tool for like an SOP creation, just recording your screen. And when you're taking nonprofits through those stages as well, like there are some things that first off you're trying to eliminate things off their plate that they don't need to be doing. Next off, I guess your core focus is this automation and AI piece. But sometimes not everything can be automated, or not all the times does it make sense to be automated. And then that final stage is delegation. So delegating it to the person who is able to do this And if you can create those SOPs from the processes, then you can take it off your plate. And that may mean, especially if you have a different skills to somebody else in your team, that your skills may be more valuable. In your case, for example, like creating the courses, creating the content, rather than, I don't know, replying to emails or sending out LinkedIn connections, or there could be some things that, yeah, that down that sort of chain of hierarchy of skills or zones of genius that do need delegating that can't be automated, that AI can even help you delegate.
Yeah, I think there's so many ways to work in partnership or to just enhance the way that we work. Even, yeah, as I said, just something, every time I'm writing a LinkedIn post, it's an interview. It's not me giving AI something that I wanted to write about. It's me giving it something and then it asks me questions back in return. And it's that interview process that I hope gets the really interesting information that's a bit deeper than the surface level stuff that I'm just kind of throwing out in the first place. And that helps me because that makes me think about these things in a deeper way. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
this getting AI to work in partnership with you is such a powerful thing because, as you know, we have kind of kept saying, so much of this information just lives in our heads. So much is just there, and I think AI can be this tool to help extract that. And then if you can create these systems that then capture and format and store this in an effect in a reusable way for other people, all of a sudden, if someone is sick, which happens in nonprofits, and that person is often doing three people's roles, and you can now have someone really help pick up and know exactly what to do by having these clear processes and procedures. Or you onboard someone, or you see, can AI assist with part of that during that day? I think there's a wide variety of ways in terms of how far down this automation flow you go. But a lot of it is really, yeah, you automate the stuff that you don't need to be manually doing, and then augment the stuff that it can enhance the way that you do things, and then, yeah, have some fun with the things that you just never thought were possible.
Yeah. And what would you say is your favorite part of what you do?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. Um, I got to be honest, I do enjoy all of it. I do. I think the most energizing is definitely the education side, especially like an in-person
Yeah.
conference where you just, you see people's facial expressions like drop when they see something that they've never seen before. Notebook LM is one of those tools where you drop in some resources, create a podcast, create a video, create an infographic, and
Yeah,
people's
yeah.
jaws just drop like, what is this magic that I'm seeing? So I think I love that, but I do enjoy also building out these kind of like systems and like really deepening my knowledge and understanding of it, because you can't teach if you don't actually use these tools as well. And so even not only on professional work, but personal work, I'm always trying to see like, how can I use Claude Code? I'm currently rebuilding my whole personal website using Claude Code. We're 2 days in, and I've got something that is like way better than I could have imagined. A year's
Yeah.
worth of manual work, and
Yeah.
it's just this like passion project because I want to see how far can I kind of build this. I've got this foot like, I'll send it to you when it's live, but it's got like all these little Easter eggs that are hidden in it to try and like give people that engaging experience, that it's more than just like a static website.
Awesome. And have you felt the impact? Like, do you have maybe just a couple stories about some of the nonprofits who you've worked with who felt maybe on the edge of burnout, or like they've been able to get some time back or grow their organizations?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think we have finally at the point where it is becoming more common. I still think we're quite far behind, unfortunately, but I think we are kind of getting to that point of more adoption and more people taking this seriously more and more. But yeah, I was part of a group last year where we trained over 1,000 people And I got a message from someone yesterday, and he said it was just he's building N8N automations, using super based dashboards, coding up interfaces to interact with the data. They on the make.com plan as well, and he's maxed out. They're using every one of the free
Wow.
60,000 automations per
Yeah.
month. They've automated as much as they can do. And I was just like, wow, that, and we finished that course, in like November. So we're looking at like 4 months. His name's Jay. I love hearing these stories.
But
Yeah.
there's quite a mix of niches as well. Like, what would you say are some of the kind of common ones that have been part of the education hub?
Oh, I mean, I get everything from, lots of like animal organizations. My history is with the animal sanctuary, so get lots of animal organizations. Climate, quite a few. I've seen quite, because what I did this year is I've actually opened up so many of the foundational courses for free. Especially after these experiences of just still seeing people lagging behind. I thought, I'm going to just make all of that stuff free, and then focus the paid membership on like the advanced automations and agents and things like that. And so I've
Yeah.
had, I think, almost 200 people register in the last week and a half. And I've seen so many variety. Like, it's amazing. I've had,
Wow.
mental health and climate, and then I even saw today like someone from a zoo. Like, I was like, oh, I don't know if they're a non-profit, but maybe technically that could be. So I think this
Yeah.
technology does not have to be, put into one bucket of which non-profit type can actually benefit from it. I think really every non-profit can value from this.
Yeah, and I'd love to ask as a kind of like a closing question, where would you like things to go in the next year or the next couple of years? What would you like to see happen in the nonprofit space with AI?
Yeah, I'd like the AI policy stat to be reversed. I think 80% should have an AI policy ASAP. Let's aim for the end of this year. I would like to see a standard AI fluency. We go through school and we get an education, and we have some type of competency around specific uh, things that we can do. I think we need a baseline now that everyone within an organization can do. And that doesn't have to be advanced, but it is being understanding of the tool that you're using, understanding all of the different functionality of it, using the AI tools that your organization has approved, your meeting note takers, your AI, dictation tools, using project, embedding it into your work so that if you're speaking to a colleague, it doesn't sound like this strange language of, oh, I don't know anything about AI. Like, we need to get a standard level of that. And then from that, I'd love to see these breakaway people within organizations, and then organizations as a whole, that are just taking this technology and pushing it to the extreme and saying, we're going to actually look like, what would this organization look like being an AI first organization? If I see this in some corporates, obviously not all, but there's a group they have a publication and they've got some AI software. They had a staff retreat, I think it was about last month. It was like a 1 week staff retreat. There was no agenda. Everyone was just allowed to have that week to experiment and play with AI. And I was like, I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's super
give people
cool.
the tools, the training, the competency, and then the time and the permission to experiment and explore, and just let's see what's possible, because never before have we had such a technology that's so powerful and so accessible and so affordable available to these nonprofit organizations, that it really now is just about imagining and driving forward to see like how far we can actually push this.
Awesome. And especially for any nonprofits watching who wanted to learn a bit more about AI, where can they find you, or where's a good place to start?
Yeah, AIimpacthub.com. As I said, there's a whole free tier now. You can learn all of the fundamentals about prompting, using AI as a strategic thought partner. There's an AI policy template, an introduction to AI ebook. Like, if you just If you just use that,
Everything you
you'll
need.
probably be like 80% ahead of like everyone else already. And then, yeah, I post a lot on LinkedIn, trying to get back into YouTube as well. And yeah, stay tuned for my new Claude Code website as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Send me over the link to the new Carl Behrend website. I think it'd be cool to explore. Might have to steal some ideas.
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. Carl, thanks so much. This has been great.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.